Okay, here. Mr. Olson. Mr. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Erkins.
Here.
Mr. Estigar.
Here.
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, couple things have happened since our last meeting. Well, first, I guess I want to introduce, I have a special guest today. My little guy is gonna be supervising the meeting, so everybody say hi to Aiden.
Aiden.
And then second, we just had the election for the district and we have both of the board, well, the soon-to-be board member and then Jim, who was reelected here. So we have Sophie Sestero, Jim Walker, who were victorious in the election on Tuesday night. So congratulations and so happy that you're going to be serving again. And we look forward to having you on the board, Sophie. That'll take place in June. We'll do the swearing in and that's when we also elect officers and establish committees. So we'll be chatting about that. Also want to say congratulations and thanks to Jim, who just completed nearly 26 years on the fire department. So he just retired also on election day. So big day for Jim. So congratulations and thanks for all your service. And then Jody's not here today, but wanted to say thanks to Jody for his 6 years of service on the board. Actually, was it 6+?
A little more from as appointed.
That's right, he was appointed. So 6+ years on the board. So thanks to Jody, and you all have thank you cards in front of you. So if you don't mind writing a little note to Jody, there's it's on his address is on the front with a stamp. So just
you can either leave them here and then we'll send them out for you or take them with you and just drop them in mail.
So yeah, I know Jody helped us through a lot and was on the audit committee and helped us with the contracting for the aquatic center. So really offered a lot of expertise and support to the board. So we appreciate his many years of service and we will miss him. So. All right, moving on. I entertain a motion for the approval of minutes dated April 22nd, 2025.
So moved.
Oh,
the agenda. Okay. It was first. Like, wait a minute. Yeah, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. That's approved. Okay, on to the monthly activity and financial report. Cody, Stephanie.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for the time today. And again, I'll just echo that. Thank you to Jody Olson. He'll be missed. I know is just around the office and coming around and helping out, just saying hi to our team. Across the street, he kind of had some office space over there a little bit if he needed it. So we will be missed and thank him for all his service for the board. Executive Director Report. April highlights, a couple things just wanted to highlight here. We had the Manager of the Year finalist for the 2025 Rose Awards. And that was in Alan Cushing. Unfortunately, he did not win the award, but he was one of 3 finalists. So we still had a chance to celebrate Alan. So that some of us in our team up there on the stage that attended the Rose Awards, that was actually the Stucco Sky Center. A great event put on by Carrie and her team. But overall, we're really proud of Alan, and internally he is our Manager of the Year here. So we're very, very proud of Alan. Another just little picture here just to highlight one of our biggest events from last month was the Ada County Boys and Girls Club. It was our largest event as far as attendance from the banquet side. That was the 2025 Wild West auction. That was just to hear some more information on those events as I get into the report. Monthly events report. So just kind of looking at how April was total, we had 33 total events. That was actually 7 over what I had forecasted. 2 of those events were not forecasted meetings that were due to Grove Hotel having a remodel going on and them needing some space for some of their events. So we picked up 2 of those. We also had 4 last minute meeting requests for space. So of the 7 over the forecast, 6 of them were kind of last minute, not really seen. The other one came in just a little bit later in the year than what we thought. So again, from a meetings number, that's one of the highest that we've had as far as the number of meetings. So a lot of single day meetings in that month in particular, but overall it generated a good revenue for Boise Center. We had 8 banquets, 5 conventions, and then 1 social event with those 19 total meetings. So we're pacing just a little bit ahead of our forecast now because we just jumped ahead 7. We were exactly pacing as of last month and now we're 7 ahead. So that was all from 1 month. Total daily attendance. April's attendance was 12,305. Again, just slight of that purple line forecast there. So again, some of the biggest events that we hosted last month, Boys and Girls Club came in just shy of 1,000, IEA at 900, St. Luke's Leadership just shy of 900, and then Idaho's Best Awards at 860 and WC Twin Awards at 770. So largest attendance events on the month. Again, we've had another number 3, so we have our second 3 on our overall, how you rate overall experience at Boise Center. So we're paying close attention to that. What it did is it brought our average down from a 4.1 or 4.91 last month to a 4.90. We actually had 20 plus responses since the last month. So we had a lot of events, as you saw with those 33. But we had 20 responses that were put in there, and responses still correctly in there as I'm looking at it, since the prior month. And again, that just shows you that a lot of those came in that higher number 5 category, because we had 1 4 before. We picked up 1 3 and then all 5s from last month as well. So we're still pacing very, very well as far as the overall score, but stuff that we're paying very close attention to in these reports and feedback from our clients.
And what was kind of the number 3? The
Overall guest experience, it's kind of a couple of the 2 events have been a little bit different. Each one was the planning process and then price sensitivity a little bit. And then execution, cleanliness of restrooms was one of the things that was noted in one of them, but things like that. Larger number of women attendees inside the building. So some of that we're just addressing as far as when we know there's a higher percentage of one particular or another on those restroom needs and tackling those as appropriate. As far as market strategy goes, again, our goals there on the left side, and this is in the next metric as well, but at a revenue total of 4.25 million and then economic impact of 7.2 and room nights at 30,000. WSECO Cat Dealer UEM conference confirmed for September of 2026, and that's an estimated of 1,400 room nights, about 94,000 in revenue, and about a little almost 600,000 in economic impact. We're very happy that Cellcore ECO confirmed for May of 2026. This is one of our largest generating revenue events, and estimated at 900 room nights, 283,000 in revenue, 512,000 in economic impact. And again, the Cellcore event varies in that revenue, but we've had that for the past few years, and it's been a very, very successful and great event for us. So similar to kind of pacing here, as you can see, the future booked economic impact on that far left column there, we're at 1.3 for the current month, and then pacing ahead of the year to date prior. On year to date, we're a little over 10 million, almost 10 and a half. So we're pacing very well to our goal on the future booked economic impact. Future booked revenue in the month was 413,000. Again, outpacing the year to date so far for prior year, and then looking good for our goal on that. And then same story over here on the future booked room nights on the right side. So current month was about 2,800. Again, pacing ahead by just shy of 4,000 rooms last year. Operational updates, a couple things I already spoke about Alan, but I got a nice photo here to put in of his wife and his mother that attended the event and got a chance to celebrate with him on the stage. So again, he was one of our top 3 finalists for the Rose Award for Manager of the Year. And then we also participated in the Boise Chamber Business After Hours Trade Show, which was held at Idaho Center in Nampa. It was a great opportunity to just get out and network with our peers and other people within the community. Our team does a great job of kind of working that trade show booth and just getting out there and making sure Boise Center is out and making sure local people that know we are here and can host their events. From the front and center side, more on the food and beverage, one of the largest events, as I mentioned, again, Boys and Girls Club, the Wild West auction at 970 attendees. Again, just over 3 million in food and beverage revenue year to date. So we're pacing right at budget, right where we expect it to be. And you'll see that where we're seeing a little bit of a head is in the beverage budget and the forecast. And I spoke about that in prior months, and I'll get into that as I get into some of that data. Operating revenues, actually April was a record April for us, so 1.2. So when you take all those meetings and those single days and conventions and add it all up, we ended up just shy at 1.1 million on the month of April. Budget revenues are sitting at 499, or where we'd be at. Operational revenues actual year to date. It's not correct. I'm not looking at that correct there. Budget revenues is 9.9 and at 9.95, I believe. That's correct on that one. That 4.9 is not correct. I'll correct that one, but overall we are pacing the budget over about $50,000 in the year-to-date budget. So that should be a 9, I believe, on that number. Gross profit, and then our gross margin. Again, we were at 17.2 last month, so we kind of came back after that on the prior. Gross margin for April alone was 22.7, so we recouped some of that loss. March is a big, heavy attendance month with a lot of public shows, so revenues on the services aren't as high. That tends to happen every March. But again, another rebound there in April with a really great month, 22.7. So we'll see that goal come back up, especially as the summer and fall hits here. So I anticipate we'll be able to hit that goal without a problem on Economic impact, April is 4.1 million. Again, another about right on pace for last year, if you're looking at it side by side there to what we did last year. March, again, just a slightly behind, but again, we're right on pace. You kind of take a look at those first 2 months, we really knocked it out of the park on those first two compared to the prior year. And again, the last 3 months have been a little bit lower, but it's averaging out to keep us right on pace for about that 50.8 million. As far as a few district updates, market feasibility study update, we met with all of the stakeholders right after the last board meeting, as you guys got a chance to meet with Johnson Consulting. We had a really great time that we spent 2 full days, truly 7 hours back-to-back meetings for both of those days. If you're interested to know kind of more, that I know Boise Dev wrote an article that I sent out to the board that really gets into a deep dive of the history of the district and also what we're looking at doing through that market feasibility study. Right now, I'm engaging with the stakeholder, continuing to engage with the stakeholders on the people that we didn't get in that first batch. So we're now rolling out our second batch of stakeholder engagement meetings. That's going to be DBA, several people, county, across the board. And again, a lot of that's listed out in the Don Day article as well, of who we're planning on meeting with next, DBA, a few others. So we've already started that, opening the kind of calendar up and looking at dates for those meetings with Johnson Consulting. I've had a few people with Carrie Westergaard and Allie helping connect with the customer advisory board, some of our largest local event planners as well, to make sure they're getting in front of Johnson and understand the benefits and challenges of hosting events in Boise. As far as Chamber Leadership Conference, several of you in the room attended that, as well as myself and a few of my team members. The theme was our education and workforce development. It was a good conference. A lot of West Ada School speech, or had a couple of different panels of West Ada School, had some developer conversations and some really good conversations around it. Overall, I think the trivia night was the highlight for those that attended. It got very ruckus, and the trivia is every year. They've done it for 2 years, and it is a very competitive group of folks. So it was interesting, led by Phil McGrain, who runs our elections. So it was a fun group and a fun night to have at the leadership conference there. And then I led, as the client, the IAVM Region 4 conference. And what that is Region 4 is Northwest United States as well as the western part of Canada. And that was held up in Vancouver, BC. It was about 170 attendees, and that's convention centers, arenas, stadiums, all across those sectors within, or those states, and then those provinces. It was a great meeting. It was actually a record attendance in my time in leadership, and this is my 7th year in leadership for them. And so, or actually 6th year, I'll be 7 next year. 6th year in leadership as the director. This is 1 full year in, and I've got 1 more year ahead of me still to go before I step back from that at that point in time. So it's been a great experience being the client. I have a deeper level of respect for our event managers, especially for managing association business, because association business is run by mostly volunteers that have a full-time job somewhere else. So us getting information in a timely way, I can understand now where my event managers get challenges and where the last minute ads and emails come from. So just even I was that client, hopefully I did an okay job. I felt good at the venue I was at, which was Vancouver Convention Center, did an outstanding job at taking care of us. Some of the best food and beverage outside of our own facility I've ever had at a convention. And then things that don't exist in Idaho are things like the ocean views that they've got that we just can't quite compete with. But I think our mountains are pretty close, if not right there with them. And then just one other announcement here, just to let the group know, but we were recognized as a Small Business of the Year Chamber Excellence Award finalist. And that is for the Jim Moore Lifetime Legacy Award for Excellence in Travel and Hospitality. So that's coming up, and it'll be hosted here in Boise at Boise Center on June 16th. We'll have a table at that and we'll find out, but we are one of the 3, I believe, finalists for that. Is it 3, Mary Michael, do you know? I believe it's 3.
3.
Yeah, one of 3 finalists, and I will recognize Mary Michael. The application process was fairly extensive as far as the information we had to put in. For that, we were recognized, nominated, and then you had to fill out the application to get into that part. And Mary Michael helped greatly in putting that together. So thank her for her efforts there. As far as lodging room revenues go, and this is going to be an interesting story as I get into this, because as you'll get into Stephanie's report as well, we saw a very big revenue number come from hotel taxes in April. And so it didn't quite correlate, as we've noticed before. It was almost the opposite story with the occupancy numbers, ADRs and everything else. Carrie Westergaard really helped kind of dig in a little bit to that report and got some information from the Idaho State Tax Commission to basically say a lot of our collections that we were given in April, some of those came from the end of March. They're not necessarily just cut off from end date of when they collected them. So that's important to note going forward, that when you see some of the average daily rates or STR report numbers that they may not exactly correlate with our tax receiving numbers. And because some of that at the end of March was a very big tax collection time. There was a lot of activity going on in the city at that time. There was some stuff at the Aquatics Center. There was stuff happening around town. So that helped. And then Treefort and all the other stuff that was happening in March, really Big Sky Tournament, a lot of activity there. March's room revenues were just over 18 million. And the reason I put that in there is because I didn't have March's numbers at the time the last board meeting happened. Now these reports were getting kicked out automatically, and we should be able to have them, hopefully, depending on how early within the month the district board meeting is, this number going forward for each board meeting. We get it about on the 18th or 19th now automatically each month versus having to request it and have it kicked out. That process is actually saving us about $8,000 a year. So we're able to save some money by getting a more efficient report and it kicked out automatically from STR. April was just 16.9. So when again, you start seeing the numbers and you're looking at March at 18.9 and then 16.9, when you start looking at the numbers that we got from the State Tax Commission, I just want to highlight that because April was a higher number than March. Lodging room demand, again, and here we're seeing a little bit of the same story for 2025, but across the board, we're seeing a very close pacing to the last 3 years in March, especially, and then April as well. Occupancy, and I'm going to kind of highlight these in a way that it's easier to see, but let's go through just occupancy on the first part here is that line down below. And as you'll see, the orange line over the top there on occupancy, we saw a little bit dip down in April, which that's where my numbers in my brain went. When did we see such a high tax revenue generation? And then see that number down on the occupancy side. And then when you get into the ADR number, it's very much the same as last year. So a little bit down on occupancy, but same on ADR, very, very close. If you actually put those over the top. Get the right one here, sorry. 142, and then last year's ADR, if I can get it to show up, was 143, so it was slightly down. So again, when you start correlating these numbers to our tax revenues, I just wanted to highlight this to the board that they don't always exactly match up with the STR.
What was occupancy right there?
The occupancies.
66.
Yes. 66.2, and then if you look at prior year, it was at 71.8. So for April.
It's like the first significant dip in like 4 years.
I'd agree.
Huh.
Something to pay attention to. Again, it's not changing too much of the forecast for the year. This is a static slide, but I'll continue to pay attention to if I see that trend happen more, that'll change this slide and the forecasting of that if that continues. Any questions on that report?
Any questions?
If I may, could you go back to that slide where you saw that discrepancy?
Yeah.
I just didn't catch on to it, that's all.
I think it should have been 9 point, let me go here. I think it should have been 9.9.
At the top for your fiscal year to date, 25 budgeted revenues? Okay.
Yes. I'll confirm and correct that data, but I need to double check on that, but I don't know what should have been budgeted revenues for this year as far as fiscal year to date. If it would have been 9.9 if I'm doing the math correct.
You was just split.
Yes.
Yes. Year to date.
Yeah.
4.99.
This would have been 4.90 if I'm doing the math correct.
Yeah, the other one should.
That's what I thought earlier, that they're flipped. Okay,
The other one should be 4.9.
Okay, and that would make sense.
I get it. Thank you for clarifying.
Sorry about that. It's my error. Okay. Any other questions on the executive director report?
All right, good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. I also would like to echo a huge thank you to Jody. He was on the hiring team when I was brought in and just a great guy, great guy. Thank you, Jody, or you guys can thank him or maybe not. So for our financial overview, this is year to date. Boise Center is at 4.972, expenses at 7.9. You can see that we are performing a little better than what we had budgeted for. District is at 4.589 with expenses at 179,000 year to date. Again, also. And we talked last month about the aquatics having its own little, this is just the lease payment that's received and moving that under the district. I'll show you in the next slide the Boise Center financial overview as those revenues and how it'll look. Currently, Boise Center is outperforming the budget by 210,000. The district is outpacing the budget by 932,000. There's a $400,000, as Cody mentioned earlier, the April hotel tax collection contributed to that jump there. This is the revenues based for just the Boise Center. I'd like to incorporate one for the district, which would, down below, as you see, room sales, other revenue, beverage revenue, food revenue, and EV, and how it's broken down. You'll have similar columns for the district, which will be the aquatics, the hotel tax collection, and the investment income. As Cody mentioned, hotel tax collections were 1.22 million for April. We, which 400,000 of that came from previous months, and we're currently $500,000 above budget just for the hotel tax collections.
So again, when you take a look just real quick at the prior year and you're looking at March is that yellow one
Yeah.
right below, and then April there, that's where I noticed a 400,000. It just didn't quite jump out to me as like March hasn't been that historically good. So even those collections being that high is something that's a bit of an anomaly that we're noticing.
And it could not even have just been March. It could have been from previous months. If a hotelier is late turning in those payments, it could be something from January or December. We're not sure.
Do they have a timeline where would they have to turn it over? What's the rule?
I haven't asked that question.
I've sent off an email. I just haven't received a response prior to this meeting, but I will get the answers and update you guys on it as I might learn more about that. So. Transfers, capital projects, there was $31,450 that were transferred this last month for capital projects. There was nothing transferred for operating expenses. So it'll show that negative, it'll dip again. And then for the lease payment or the bond, 143,000 was set, that's static. This is our investments sheet statement out of Clearwater. You guys may have remembered me saying that there was an excess of cash sitting in our bank accounts. We did make a $2 million transfer over to Clearwater. And so it is now safely in the investment part of things. You'll see, I know one of the numbers you guys love to see is the interest income over there at $65,406. That jumped up about 10,675 from last month. So that, I mean, that was a huge win on our part, is getting that money transferred over into Clearwater and earning a higher percentage than what we are with Wells Fargo.
I think some of it had to do with the market as well, if you paid attention to what was going on.
Okay, maybe some of that, but really. This is our district's cash position. The cash and investments, that first cell there, the blue box, 33,972,000. Little concerned about that number. I was out last week when my senior accountant shared this number with Cody. I think she and I are not on the same page with where that number is coming from. I calculated it a little bit higher. And so I'll get back to you guys with regards to that. But the restricted funds are the same, stabilization funds are the same, and the cash available for projects will increase based upon what that cash and investments availability is. I think there was a discrepancy with the way that $2 million was transferred and when it hit Clearwater and when it hit Charles Schwab. And so there's a little lag in between there. Any questions? All right, well, thank you guys.
With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on. Aquatics, Josh and Chelsea.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thanks for having us. As you can see, I brought the brains of the operation to the table. Chelsea Johnson's our guru, and we couldn't do anything of what we do without her. So she's gonna talk a lot about programming. We'll get through my stuff, hopefully fast, but as always, if you have any questions, let me know. I don't know. How do I change
I think it's a big green one.
the big green one? No?
They're gonna get you loaded up here, I think.
Oh. Well, while we're waiting for that, I'd like to echo Madam Chair's congratulations to Jim Walker. Been a instrumental asset to the aquatics ICA and getting this project started from start to finish. We appreciate all that you've done and look forward to continuing working with you. And then also express our thanks to Jody for everything that he did from start to finish. He was instrumental in everything that we did, getting the construction up going. So appreciate your service and the rest of the board members as well. So operations summary, cost of goods sold. Revenues are up, but unfortunately expenses are up with that. Primarily labor costs, some utility expenses, but hitting pretty close to our budget, pretty darn close to our budget for this year in terms of variance. So couple things of note, we did, and we are getting the main competition pool pump replaced and fixed, which is a big step in the right direction because it is going to potentially allow us to have a backup pump available. So we would be able to continue operations without any kind of hesitation if we were to have any issues. What happened is there was just a seal behind the pump that was going out, so we had to get that replaced, and we opted to get a new pump so we would have a spare one on the side. So a little bit of an expense to get through, but we believe through the long haul, it is an investment in our future, make sure that operations continue and maintain it to be as smooth as possible. Economic impact, this is through Q1. We just did 2 big events. We did a local, it's called the Spring Fling. I think we had about almost 400 swimmers there. We had a lot of folks coming in from the Caldwell, Nampa. Then had some from Nevada come in, but more of a local meet. And then we had a USA water polo swimming event that had 200, not included here. We should get the economic update from Visit Boise next week on that. But we did hold, as I mentioned in the last meeting, our largest 2 events, which were spring sectionals, the USA swimming event, and then age group regionals, which was extremely large, well over 600 swimmers, all from across the western side of the United States, primarily Northern California, Washington, Oregon. So doing really good on the economic impact, mostly because we front loaded our bigger events that generate the travel that we're looking for, putting heads in beds at the beginning of this year, whereas we've the last couple of years had them in the middle. From a budgeted standpoint, we're kind of right at 50%, almost halfway through the year, based on, again, the Visit Boise numbers, what we were projected to do. Mentioned a couple of these. So we've had the major events that we had scheduled from USA Swimming already happened this year. That was spring sectionals. Those are the participants coming from out of state. Also Northwest age group sectionals. And then the 2 that we noted there, the USA water polo tournament, swimming, or USA water polo.
Yeah, it was called Mountain Madness.
Yep.
And it was for kids 18 and under, and I think they had 12 to 14 teams, and they're hoping to double that next year. They're actually already booked for next year. So they signed a 2-year contract with us to plan and run that tournament this year and then next year as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think Mr. Walker asked a question about the events that we do and how we get these awarded. And really Ryan Stratton is pivotal in that he is integrated with USA Swimming. USA Swimming puts these major meets out to bid. So sectionals, age group regionals, every aquatics facility in the western side of the United States or nationally can put in for him. And so what he does is he stays in that loop is the best way for me to describe it, to make sure that our name is being put in front of them. Age group sectionals was a very big success. That meet across the nation has been generated. I mean, I think in Seattle this year, they had well over 1,000 swimmers. So we're actually looking at creating a second meet, another one that would have hopefully more permanency in the Boise location. So adding something that can be more reoccurring. And then sectionals is, that bid is about to come up in the next month or so, and we put our name in that hat as well. So we continue to look for, and Ryan's instrumental in making sure that we're we're evaluating all of these national type meets to bring folks to the Boise area. For the rest of the year, the next biggest one is the Paralympic event, nationals. We are, I know, actively recruiting for sponsorships. We have corporations and people that are donating time and money to be able to put that on the facilities, donating the space to the Paralympic nationals. We're pretty excited about what that turnout's going to look like and the people that are participating. Summer Championships is more of a local. We do get some Nevada and mostly Idaho, some northern Idaho swimmers, middle, I guess more eastern Idaho swimmers. And then we kick off into this high school season. The one big meet that we have planned is the Brave Nights, that's Boise Braves, and then the BK Knight Invitational. We do bring athletes from across the state, so it's not just in the Treasure Valley. But one thing that I'd like to note that we do especially well is host high school meets every single week during the season. And so we bring in 3 teams 3 times a day,
Correct.
every single week through that high school season. So it generates a lot of traffic, but more importantly, it provides a lot of opportunity for these high school athletes to compete. And, you know, obviously I'm a little bit biased in the best facility in the state, and then I would argue in the region. We'll just keep Federal Way Seattle out of that. I still have a heart for that. And then we have another collegiate. We had this event last year, the
Correct.
Vandal.
Yep.
Very successful. We have that again in November. With that, I'm going to transfer it over to the better part of this conversation. And
More exciting.
I'll let Chelsea take over.
So for the reason an uptick for labor costs for the summer, it's really hard for us to try and always make sure that we have enough staff. So when we were talking about labor uptick, I've hired probably about 12 to 15 new employees for the summer, in the hopes that some of them will hopefully stay throughout the year, because a couple of them are local. Where obviously we are going to still lose a few at the end of the summer because they all go back to college, and whatnot. So that's going to include lifeguards, summer camp, swimming lessons, and a couple of front desk people, but predominantly it's going to be swimming lessons and summer camps is what we're looking at for that labor cost uptick. So the big news, if you will, is our little rec swim team, which is called the All Stars. We are joining I guess it would be a little bit of a newer league, if you will, within the last 4 to 6 years, I think is about how long it's been around. It's called the Four Rivers League. So the city of Boise has their own league, which consists of the country clubs and, the YMCA team, which is called the Pirates. And typically it's mainly them. And I don't think they've let any new teams into that league in like the last 20 years or something like, it's something astronomical. Their big final meet at the end of the season is like 700 to 800 kids. It's insane. So with that and trying not to limit swimming as a sport to kids and other participants, the smaller areas, and us included, because we're still new and growing, but like Mountain Home, Parma, Caldwell, the West Y actually developed a second team. The South Meridian Y has their own team. Cascade has a team. Hidden Springs has a team. So all of these other locations have come together and they've formed their own little league, which some people would say is a step down or different than the regular Boise League. But I am actually hoping to take this over next year. Fingers crossed. The guy that's been doing it, he's Mountain Home and he's been doing it, I think he said, since it started, and he's kind of over it at this point. So we were gonna have championships for that meet in Mountain Home, but actually their pool might actually not be ready in time for whatever construction purposes that they have going on. So I definitely threw the big volunteer hand to host championships for that meet. That's gonna be the end of July. So like I said, it's just gonna be a 1-day event. I think probably give or take maybe 200, 250 kids. But typically this league is all old school. So like stopwatches and pencils. So they've never done a real meet with like a scoreboard and like a timing system before. So that'll be a little bit of a flashy thing compared to what they normally do, which will be really cool. So I'm interested to see where that goes. We actually hired a head coach. He's a collegiate swimmer. And so I'm really interested to see where that goes. Summer camps are on the uptick as usual. July is always a lot more full than June, which we expect. So we're just really trying to pull those June kids in there. But we also know that people like to plug summer camps in as like a filler.
just kind of where they have gaps in their summer vacations and whatnot, so not too worried about that. But we do have 3 of the 7 weeks of camp that we're offering already are full and have wait lists on them. And those are about 12 kids a week, with the exception if someone's like, oh, my friend made it and I didn't, we'll push a 13th kid in there, kind of thing. For the summer, we're gonna be switching to long course. That's actually gonna start next week, after Memorial Day. So everyone, well, that's not true. Some people are excited. Some people walk in and they see the bowl and they go, and then they leave. Because long course is a little bit intimidating if you've never done it before. Long course is 15 meters, like what they do in the Olympics. So anyways, we typically get a lot more people coming in for that, just from a member's standpoint in the mornings. Water polo has also recently upticked their amount of, I guess, program rental time, if you will. The YMCA unfortunately has a hole in the bottom of their big pool right now. And I'm not really sure when that's gonna be fixed, but they typically practice out there once a week and come practice out with us once a week. And right now they've been with us all of April and all of May, 3 days a week. Because they're trying to get their youth water polo program going and their master's program so that we can keep practicing, excuse me, and whatnot. And then swimming lessons is as per usual. Everyone always gets really excited for summer swimming lessons. So those are starting to kick up. We've got some preschools and daycares and stuff coming in, and that's their mandatory programming for the summer that they make all of their kids participate in. So those will be in the morning, and we'll still have some public lessons and whatnot in the morning as well. And then regular programming at night and on the weekends like we would on a year-round basis. Right? Any questions? Sorry, that was a lot of information.
Out of the 25 staff members, how many are full-time?
Full-time, that's just me and Nick.
Okay, that's what I-
Yeah, everybody else is either seasonal or part-time, if you will. I have another, actually, I guess it would be 3, but she's unfortunately getting ready to leave. Her name's Peyton. She's my lesson coordinator. She's been with us for about 1.5 years, but she's trying to get her master's degree taken care of, and it doesn't sound like what she wants to do is offered with Boise State. So she's gonna have to potentially move home at the end of the summer.
Do you notice a lot of your staff are coming from Boise State? You said something about that. Go ahead.
Yes, so a lot of our staff do tend to come from Boise State. Obviously in the summertime, that's a little bit different because people are coming home from all over the place, but it seems to be a really great job for a college kid and high school, because based on the semester, we'll change their availability. So when they sign up for new classes or for the high school kids, when a new sports season exists, they're like, I have tennis, I can't work on Wednesdays anymore at all. We're like, oh yeah, no problem, absolutely. But the goal for lessons is to build trust, and I'm sure as little Aiden over there can attest to, it's always really helpful to have the same instructor as often as possible, specifically with those littler kids. The big ones are a little bit more flexible. But the little guys, it's really about building trust and knowing that the pool and the water is fun, and it's not like, where's Miss Stephanie? I don't know who you are. Yeah, you know what I mean? So for summertime, a little bit, that does offer a challenge sometimes with just how many people are going on vacation and stuff like that. So that's why we tend to overhire. We also do have a little bit more flexibility with the kids that swim on like the club teams at our facility, because they have a little bit more gappage in their schedule, so they can help out and sub and stuff too. And some of the kids are used to seeing them as well. So ideally, I prefer that they're all local, but a lot of kids that actually go to Boise State, I say kids, sorry. A lot of college students that go to Boise State aren't actually local anymore, which is a little tough because most of them are from California, Oregon, Washington, surrounding states. And some of them tend to go home for 2 to 3 months for the summer. And they're like, hey, do I have a job when I get back? I'm like, no, don't know. We'll see.
Very similar
But-
to, we use a lot of Boise State students for our
Yeah.
wait staff, for operations, a lot of our service departments as well, so
Yeah.
very similar way, but it's been
Mhm.
successful. I'm hearing that's.
Yeah, the predominant amount of kids that we get, collegiate students that we get, I say kids, sorry, they're younger than me, that we get tend to be education background, kinesiology background, and then sometimes social work, and sometimes lower, like preschool teachers is a lot of what we get most of the time. Mhm.
And so are you continuing to look at different programming at school, plugging that in?
To add stuff. Yeah, I've actually been in contact with a lady about some stand-up paddleboarding. That would be a possibility. For something like that, it's gonna come down to somebody else being able to come in with their own equipment. So for us, it comes down to a storage standpoint. Paddleboards are 11 to 12 feet long. And when you stack 10 to 15 of them in there, that's a little hard. I had another gal reach out about doing a sound bath, which I had never heard of before, so I had to look it up. But I guess you're just kind of hanging out on like a mattress or some sort of flotation device in the pool, and it has to be dead silent. And they're doing the thing with the bowl and you go around the ring and the nice music and it's very relaxing. I've asked some friends about it. I've never experienced it myself. But it's a very interesting proposition. So just trying to figure out if something like that can work. Cause if things need to be dead silent, it would either have to be before or after hours event. Cause that pool is definitely not quiet when everything's running. So just trying to figure out some flexibility with stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely. We're always trying to figure out new programming. Kayaking, for example, is a seasonal program, if you will, and they're just starting to end actually because obviously the rivers, and whatnot are starting to open up. But in the fall and winter time, they come in and they practice in our pool and they're doing their rolls and they do their tricks and they'll come in once to twice a week and do all that kind of stuff. So it just depends really on the time of year and what we can offer.
And do you want to give an update on the parking lot?
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be great.
just gonna let you guys know that I've got LCA kind of working on a RFP process. What we're trying to identify for that is what dates will work best with them for impact and trying to identify with the contractors what could be graded, when it can be poured and how long that timing is, so I can let them know and identify the best window of time and opportunity to do that, to not impact operations or any of the events there.
Great.
So I'd anticipate by next month we'll have that posted for sure, so.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We were high school season, prior to high school season, if
Prior
I got a wish list, that would probably be
Prior
it.
to August 11th. Do you want a really specific date?
Chelsea knows.
Prior to August 11th, please, if possible.
I don't know, do you have your kids out there still swim lessons?
No, but I guess we think about it during the summer, so who knows what'll happen.
There's still a couple of spots open.
If anybody's been out there, it's a nightmare.
Parking.
The parking, I mean, yeah, so,
That's what we get hit the most with on reviews.
yeah, if you
people-
look at the reviews, you'll see that that's. the-
Parking's a common occurrence, a common reoccurrence.
And it's a
What about
safety
the
issue.
neighbors? How is that relationship with them?
I know that Fred Meyer's and Talk and whatnot across the street, which blows my mind. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Whenever we have large events, the day before the event starts, they have their signs out. And it says no parking, you will be towed, but the amount of business that is brought into that complex, I don't know, it just kind of blows my mind, why they're so against it, because obviously if you're gonna park there, there's restaurants, your kid needs Gatorade. I mean, if it's a huge meet, you're there for a whole week. Like, I mean, I do my best to go over there too and let them know when big events and things like that are happening so they can order more Gatorade and granola bars and snacks. Cause I mean, if these kids are coming from out of the state, or I mean, even from just barely Nevada or Arizona or something like that, a lot of the parents are coming with them, specifically if they're younger children. So they don't want to go out to eat 4 to 5 times a day, spending hundreds of dollars. I mean, obviously that's probably going to be unavoidable, for dinner. But I mean, if you're just throwing, here's some trail mix snack, middle of the swim meet, eat it really quick and go swim some, like, just the volume of business that we bring that business complex, it just is super interesting to me why the parking is such a,
Now, with the other half of that parking lot, do you think it'll solve what percentage, all of the need or not all of?
oh no, not for big meets like that, absolutely not. When it comes to general facility usage, like for example, on a Saturday morning or something like that for lessons, when it's a little bit of a higher uptick in clientele coming in. Same thing goes with Monday nights. I think it'll be super helpful, depending on what other programming we have going on at the same time. Like right now, all of the club swim team kids are actually, I mean, most of them are high school kids. They're not allowed to park in the parking lot, period. Unless it's like a Saturday morning at like 7 a.m. or they're there at 5 a.m. for practice, because then it's not a big deal. But as soon as you hit that normal business hour time of 9 to 6, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., the amount of them that just drive themselves in our single-use cars and we'd be parking in that parking lot for 2 hours when lesson kids are in and out, parents every 30 minutes, they would take up everything. So they're actually, according to their coaches, they're not allowed to park in the lot. They need to park the next street over. I don't know where else they'd be parking. Diamond, that next street over is free parking all the way down. Typically, as we get into summer though, sometimes there's a little bit of an uptick in homelessness as far as people parking their cars there. Because it doesn't sound like police ticket or anything like that in that area. Because there's no signs for specific parking.
And do you want to talk about the fence area? Because I know there's some other issues, you know, with people parking on
Oh,
top of
yes.
the landscape.
Yes. People have gotten very creative with their parking strategies. They are parking in and on top of our landscaping. There's certain parts in the parking lot, specifically our back kind of left-hand corner, if you will, that they've driven over the landscaping and the sprinkler drip system so much that they've actually broken it multiple times. It's insane. They'll park on the grass, they'll park over top of sprinklers, they'll literally break them.
Is that happening on the other side where there is parking lot currently? Is it just happening on the part? with the
It's
dirt?
literally everywhere.
Okay.
So if you're looking at the front of the building, most of that parking I'm talking about is gonna be behind the facility. So on the right-hand side where the dirt area is, if you will, rather than just parking in the dirt, people will start pulling onto the grass in front of the facility off of Findlay right there. And they'll park anywhere they can.
Just for clarification, not the actual parking lot. We don't have these
Correct.
problems in
No,
the
no, no.
actual parking lot.
Not where there's
Just
actual
in the
spaces.
unfinished
Just in the
dirt part.
unfinished, so.
Correct.
Yeah, so to be clear, what I believe, in my opinion, is that getting that finished, that area would alleviate a lot of this, because then people would maybe stop living like the wild west and parking wherever it is that
The
they're.
reason I'm asking that question is because I've got it in the plans to put curbing up around those
Yep.
landscaped
And-
areas, so that will stop it, but I didn't know if we needed to address what's already over on the landscaped areas of the current park.
No, it would only be the undeveloped portion of
Yeah.
that. We also put a fence up that's separated in between the well, it's not Jackson's now,
It's
it's
something else,
something
yeah.
else now. However, they've changed their rules, so we see a lot less semi-truck activity that was going in and out of that travel center. So I think that is absolutely improved, especially on the safety side.
Mm-hmm.
A lot less people coming in and out, but that fencing has helped a lot.
And then there is that
Yeah, I
gap.
was gonna say, so
So that's something that we could maybe address too.
we've talked about too, yeah. So there is in the back left-hand corner of the property, it's kind of where technically 3 or 4 properties meet in that corner. There's a gap probably about as big as this table, roughly, give or take. Yeah, and it's a great thoroughfare for homeless or people that have just gotten off the bus, because it drops off over by the Fred Meyer gas station around the corner there. So there's a lot of people that'll just walk through there. They'll come and check our sheds in the back to see if they're open. Sometimes in the summertime, they'll camp out in between them and whatnot, so.
We're always actively looking for
As much as
solutions
possible.
as much as we possibly can. We've definitely seen an increase in, I don't wanna say police activity, but the police have been driving it, they help out, and just having that presence, it has been nice. I've seen them there a couple times. They're not taking in our day, but they're just there.
Yeah.
So I do believe that works. To also answer your question about the neighbors, Sapadine is a great partner.
They're
When they don't have their business hours, they have it posted that people at the aquatic facility can park in there. So they are a great neighbor. There are also some neighbors that are down the way that you can park in. Fred Meyer, we send so much, but that Starbucks on any one of those big national
gosh,
meets is
yeah.
out of coffee within like 3 hours. So
Mhm.
to Chelsea's point, it's a little mind boggling, but we continue to be, notify them and be good partners to them, so that way that their parking spaces aren't being taken. For all the local needs, I think that parking lot would absolutely be a big pressure off. For the national meets, we've also done a really good job of trying to shuttle people back. We get golf carts and we'll drive Diamond, we'll drive the road, and we'll bring people in, so they're not having to walk as far, because we want that experience, one, to be fun and not feel like they gotta walk 10 miles, and also offer some safety as well. So we are continuously trying to be, innovative in solving this problem, because we do realize that is one of the issues, one of the things that we need to address on a consistent basis. So we appreciate the auditorium district taking that under consideration and issuing that RFP.
And so with that, maybe some signage, so curbing,
That's what I wrote
parking
down.
lot signage,
Yep.
maybe closing that fence area, so cleaning up some of that stuff to where it's a little more secure and safe and
Makes the property
better flow.
protected.
Well, I'll say, and ideally, if we created it almost like a school drop-off zone, you come in one way, you go
Yeah.
out the other kind of a thing.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what the design is.
Yeah,
You guys have a preference which one? I have currently, the entrance would be the current parking lot and the exit being.
correct,
Okay.
yeah. And then we can move one of those sheds and we can make a nice turn around in the back,
Okay.
all the way around.
And I'm sure emergency vehicles would appreciate having that.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to stop and then try and
Try to
pull
figure
straight
out
in
how
and then
to-
turn around, yeah.
Not my problem.
We get we get semi trucks too that come in too, if they're dropping off something big, like for a
Oh.
pump or something, for example. They're like, where do I turn around? I'm like, yeah, I'll help you back out.
Okay,
So that's a little hard for them as well.
okay.
Cause they wouldn't be able to make that corner where the shed is, right?
Right, okay. Any other questions for swim? All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, election update, Cody?
You kind of covered it at the very beginning, but I'll just kind of congratulate. There was 16,900 total some odd votes that came in for that. So it was a good turnout overall. But congratulations to Sophie Sestero and Jim Walker as the incumbent and Jim, and then new incoming board member Sophie. More information coming, but we're gonna be getting her set up with an email address, photo taken, get some board training done between now and the next board meeting. So I've sent out already some links and bylaws and open meeting laws, all kinds of fun stuff to Sophie. So a lot of reading material for her to peruse through. She's trying to fall asleep at night, so.
We need to update Jim's photo. Is it still from 12 years ago? He wants
It
to
is the same photo, I think is what
He
he likes. How he looks a little young in that one, so. So yes, again, congratulations, but it was a great experience for me just on the first election running it. The elections office, Ali at the elections office, that's the election supervisor, very helpful through the process with me. So at this point in time, I'm waiting for the final certifications from the commissioners that all sign that, and then they'll send it to me. And then at that point, we're good to go.
Okay, audit update.
Yes, we met with the auditor, and I know that Kristen stepped in for Jody as on the audit committee and met with Ide Bailey. What we're planning on doing is finishing off the management discussion and analysis piece right now. There are 3 minor findings that I want to make sure that the board's aware of. You heard it directly from the auditor themselves. Again, nothing really concerning, but there are 3 things that were just stuff that we need to be better in our processes. And I think they highlighted it as well. It was mostly in the transition of the prior process from the prior director of finance to the new director of finance. Some of these things that just could be improved or just were missed a couple times, and I'll just highlight a couple of those. One of them was a due from accounts. That was a couple of aquatics payments that were made during the year that were put into the Boise Center fund account and not moved over to the aquatics fund account as soon. We have some ideas here to really kind of, at this point, there's not a lot of transactions back and forth from the aquatic side now that it's built. Now, obviously, we'll have the parking lot, but rolling that aquatics fund under the district and then just reporting on it via GL, I think is our plan going forward. That'll help a little bit there, but again, this has been corrected on that part, so it wasn't anything, none of these had anything nefarious or anything weird. There was just two $40,000 payments that sat inside the Boise Center side longer than they were supposed to and then get transferred.
So it's not a difference in
Money.
online, it's just where it was lit.
Where,
So when you looked at the 3 fund balances, they were still zeroing out and balanced. It was just where they were at. That was incorrect. Then there was a material investment adjustment, and that was really a difference between the Clearwater report and the Schwab report. So I think if we just go forward and start turning over all the Schwab reports, that'll clean that up going forward. So it wasn't anything.
there was also a discrepancy with regards to previous finance team created a worksheet.
Oh, yes.
They were reporting on a net figure, not breaking it down per the actual GLs, where when I started receiving journal entries directly from Clearwater, they weren't netted. So there was a very convoluted worksheet that was created. It was manual. It was a workaround in the system. It's an Excel spreadsheet, which I have told you guys I'm not comfortable in reporting finances out of. I want everything back in this ERP system to where it cannot be fat fingered. It cannot be manipulated with formulas. It is based upon the statement from the third party. So
So it wasn't that the money was
not there.
not there, it was
It's
just
there.
the incorrect numbers were given to the auditors because the
The
incorrect report was grabbed.
Because
right,
of
I
the
guess,
because of the
if they-
difference in the way it was reported from.
But they have to find that. They have to say, oh, well, you didn't give us the correct numbers to begin with, so we have to call that a finding, right? It's
Yep.
not that the money wasn't there, it was just they didn't get the right report.
Couple things that we're gonna do is just as we get it, because we're halfway through the year now, is making sure, kind of double checking as we're sending stuff, because then basically the auditor had said if we'd sent them before that we turned it all over, there would have been an opportunity to correct that. So we're gonna try to make sure we're doing some of that a little more proactively. The third one was a PTO accrual discrepancy, and that was really just between Paylocity, which is our system for all of our employee system. Basically, it manages our PTO, our pay, all of our payroll. And then that gets transferred into Momentous, and the way that accrual was happening in Momentous was incorrect, so.
It was
correct.
another workaround where they pulled information out of the payroll system, put it into a worksheet, manipulated numbers and formulas, and then put it into Momentous. And so it was a difference in, with regards to reporting. I
So
tend to trust the systems that I pay thousands of dollars for to, to run it. And with payroll, yeah. I was without a payroll specialist. I don't want to make excuses. I was without a payroll specialist for a good approximately 8 months. I was probably working more in the department than on the department. My team is fully staffed now. We're in a great spot. And as Cody mentioned, going back through the previous months of this fiscal year and ensuring that everything's been consistent, so.
Yeah, I just want to recognize how proud I am of the finance team. I know that this isn't great, but ideal is not what we want, any 3 findings. But on the end of the day, she didn't have the full fiscal year here even yet at
Correct.
this time under that last fiscal year. So process changes, and again, Eide Bailly made me feel very comfortable that they expect on some of these, when you have transition, that they're gonna have some of that. You heard that as well. Again, we're doing $20 million worth of revenue, 10 million on there, 11 million on the Boise Center side, another 11.4 last year on the collection side. So to have these 3 findings be what they are, I'm proud with what the team got through last year and all the changes that took place, new executive director as well. But systems, I'll just echo that I'm a big believer in making sure we're not taking things out. I fat fingered a number right there
Right.
today on that report. It should have been 4. I know what it was. It should have been 4.99 because we're 5 or 50,000 above, not 9, because that wouldn't be that far into fiscal year operating revenues at this point in time.
And just for everybody's edification, there's 3 findings, but they're only dinging us for 1.
Yes.
Those are journal entries. It's the way the internal process was. They're not dinging us for 3 separate events. It is 1. So there were 3 identifiable reasons, and thankfully Eide Bailly has, said that they are all just 1 finding. It's under the journal entry process. So we're good with regards to that.
And their recommendation was to, instead of maybe waiting till the year end, and I know it was a staffing issue.
Correct, yeah.
So there wasn't enough time to correct
Yeah.
this stuff before turning it over. But their recommendation was to maybe do monthly or at least quarterly reviews of this to make sure that everything is updated and correct, so that you're not doing the last minute push at the end of the year. And so I've asked Cody to just make sure that he's checking in.
And that was happening during the prior director of finances. I think some of these same findings would have came out if we wouldn't have been doing that process before under the prior director. Because it was just, we had opportunities to correct and change it before we got to this point with the staff being as low as it was. We just didn't get as proactive. So I'll own that as the executive director, but I want to recognize the finance team, Stephanie, for doing a great job this year. And
You don't need to own, honestly, I'll own it. As the director of finance, I'm gonna tell you this last year has been the most difficult thing that I've ever undertaken. However, it's also been the most rewarding. And so with that, while I had to work in the trenches, I know every aspect of the finance department. I am far more comfortable with where the numbers are coming from. And, I have great hope for this department and the changes that we've made. I'm very proud of it. So I will stand behind any of the decisions that have been made and what I've had to go through.
And so we do have a deadline. So the audit has to be done by the end of this month for our bond financing, right?
Yes.
Correct.
So that they're working
So
last minute.
what our plan is we're finishing the MD&A as I spoke about, and that's gonna be turned over to Eide Bailly by Friday. The holiday on Monday is gonna give Eide Bailly Tuesday, Wednesday to review. Then we'll go over if we've got anything that we need to edit or change to the MD&A on Thursday. They'll sign off on it on Thursday or Friday. We'll meet that. They'll come and report to the board with the final report and a binded report at the June meeting.
So the report in June, but it'll be completed as of May 31st to meet the deadline and turned over to our, who is it?
It's
Who has it?
Zion.
Zion.
Okay.
That's the requirement. It's a bonding requirement is what it is. It's not anything on the district side. It's actually a bond requirement, so.
So any questions about the audit, the findings, processes, things moving forward?
The moving forward part, if we end up doing another complex of some sort, that probably isn't gonna be just a GL thing like Aquatic Center, right? So,
No, there'd be another fund account.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right.
okay.
It would likely be its own other fund, and whether that's, I don't know what we call it, Boise Center South, North, whatever direction it goes, so it depends on whatever.
I think,
that's
and also
paid for.
depending on the level of our involvement. With this, it was created as a government, but once you create a fund account, the auditor then is looking at that. That's that's one of the reasons why I suggested moving aquatics over and underneath the district, because it does allow for human error to come in. We've got multiple bank accounts, far too many, in
How
my
many do we have?
opinion.
Is it 7 or?
Seven,
7?
far too many in my opinion, and having that deposited directly into the district, because it is just a lease payment. Now, if we were running operations and we were having, labor and cost of goods coming out of there, then I could see it being its own, but because it's not. So moving forward, depending what our involvement is, with a new entity, then that would determine where we put it.
And I'll just kind of speak to what Mike has kind of said is we're all doing business as the district. It's just,
district.
these are different ways for us to be able to account for how we're running each part of the business and be able to track it a little bit cleaner.
You're legally one entity.
One entity. And I have since learned that in our ERP system, there is another coding mechanism that we can use to where we wouldn't even really need to do another fund account. It would allow us to put it, legal expenses would be legal expenses, but then this particular invoice gets coded to aquatics, or this one gets coded to Boise Center, or this one gets coded to something complete, whatever the next project is going to be. So it would allow for that to make it a lot cleaner, one fund account, and easier to read from a financial standpoint.
And the auditor said that when you close a fund account, there's just gonna be kind of a minor
A little gap.
blip on the audit next
Yeah.
year, because
Yeah.
it's like how you close it out or something.
It just goes to zero. It just looks weird, he said, yeah.
Any other
Any other questions?
questions
the-
from the?
Audit? Jim, Tim, other questions about audit or financials?
Good.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna have him do the honor. So,
Right.
seeing no other business before the board, meeting is adjourned.
Nice.
Nice.